Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his glorious book, Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. Sadaqallahu wa sadaqa rasuluhu nabiyul kareem. My dear brothers, sisters, and viewers listening to this transmission, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the month of Rabiul Thani. This is the month of where our Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahimahullah ta'ala, he passed away, and his urs is celebrated in this month. So I wanted to take this opportunity to briefly explain about the life of Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. His significant for the Ahlul Sunnah and the Muslims, and his teachings. So the ayah I've read and recited in the Quran, Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. The closest meaning to the ayah is that no doubt. So ala inna, it's the taqid, it is emphasis on, there's no doubt, the certainty that the awliya of Allah, they have no fear, la khawfun alayhim wa la yahzanun, and they do not grieve. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna min ibadillahi la unasan ma hum bi anbiya wa la shuhada. That there are people from Allah, they are people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they're not anbiya and they are also not shuhada. يغبطهم الأنبياء والشهداء يوم القيامة. يغبط means to envy. But in this meaning, we understand that the Anbiya and the Shuhada, they will look at the status and they will envy, but they not envy in that sense that we think. That they will think of greatness and they will have a rush on them, that how good a status they have. That even on the day of judgment, Anbiya and the Shuhada, they're looking at them and they're saying what a great status they have because of their makan, their status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Sahaba asked him, Ya Rasulullah, tukhbiruna mahum. Who are these people? Who are these servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They have such a great status on the day of Qiyamah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Hum qawmun tahabu bi ruhillah ala ghayri arhami baynahum. That these are people who love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of their relationship, blood relationship or anything like that. They love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And wala amwalin yata'atunaha. It's not because of the wealth and the money that they give to each other. There's not like worldly you can say intentions or worldly preferences, that's why they love them, or because of their blood ties that they prefer them and love them. No, they love them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For wallahi, and but I swear by Allah, inna wujuhahum la nurun, subhanallah, that their faces are nur, they are enlightened. Wahum wa annahum ala nur, and they are on the light. On the day of judgment, they will be sitting on the pulpits, there will be light there. La yakhafuna idha khafa an-nas. They will not fear when others will fear and the common people will fear. Wala yahzuna idha khazana an-nas. And they will not grieve when the other people will grieve. And then the Prophet ﷺ read this ayah. Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. So we hear from this that the people of Allah, the wali of Allah, they're the people that they love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of the blood ties and not because of the wealth or any kind of need they have for each other. It is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and their faces are enlightened and they are on light. When the people will be fearing on the day of judgment, they will not be fearing. And when the people are sad, they are not sad. So wali, awliya is a plural of wali. Wali loosely we translate as the friend of Allah. Wali can also mean the helper. Al-Nasir means to help. So here in the translation we understand is the wali means the friend of Allah, the one who closes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Tabari rahimahullah ta'ala, when explaining this ayah, and explains that what does that mean? The la khawfun alayhim and wala yahzanun. What does that mean that there is no khawf on them? He says the wali of Allah, they do not have khawf because in the akhirah, they do not have khawf in the akhirah from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they will be protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they are not sad because of the losing of dunya. So if in the dunya they lost wealth, they lost the prisons, they lost everything, they're not sad about it. Wala yahzanun, they do not become sad losing dunya. So for in dunya they're not sad. Why? Because they are the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do not care about dunya. So in this dunya, in this world, they're not running after wealth, they're not running after the fame, they're not running after things like that. So they are not sad in the dunya. When hereafter, they will not be fearing, because they have gained the reward, they have become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they have no khawf, la khawfun alayhim. On the day when people will be fearing, they will not be fearing. And on the day the people are sad, we're concerned about our worldly matters, they do not care. They do not care about the worldly matters. Also, if you read the ayah and the next two ayahs, it is a tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran, to understand the tafsir of Quran from the Quran. We also understand the next two ayahs says, Ala inna awliya Allahi la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. And after that says, Alladhina amanu wa kanu yattakun. So who are the awliyas? Alladhina, these are those people that accepted, they become mu'min, accept Islam. Alladhina amanu wa kanu yattakun, and they were muttaqi, they were pious, they abstained from haram. These are the people of Allah. These are the awliya of Allah. Lahumul bushra fil hayati dunya wa fil akhirati la tabdila li kalimati Allahi. So lahumul bushra fil dunya, that they have a glad tidings in this dunya. What does that mean, that they have glad tidings in the dunya? If you look at major tafsir, if you look at Ibn Kathir or Tabari or Qurtubi rahimahumullah ta'ala, they say that the lahumul bushra, he means that the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have good dreams. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them glad tidings, good news before they pass away in the dunya. Allah ta'ala give them those good news through their dreams. وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِكَلِمَاتِ اللَّهِ, that Allah will not change its words. I.e., the explanation is Allah will give them what Allah has promised them. That if you do good in this dunya, if you accept Islam, and if you do amal, Allah will enter into Jannah forever. So this is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those people who are the closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many ayahs mentions about the awliya of Allah, the people of Allah, the people who believed, the people who followed him, the people who became close to him, the people who got to know him. These are the people of knowledge, they're the people of wisdom, these are people of intellect, they're the people of reflection, these are people of ibadah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ يَبِيتُونَ لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا. These are people who spend night in qiyam and in sujood, and in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are the people الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. So these are people who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they are standing, وَقُعُودًا when they are sitting, وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ and even when they are laying down, they are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ and they're thinking about, and they do a tafakkur. Thinking is just I would say, not as deep. Tafakkur means a deep reflection upon khalqi samawati wal ard, upon the creation of the skies, heavens and earth. رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. And they say, "Oh Rabb, you have not created us for nothing. Subhanaka faqina adhaban nar." Allah, also, you are Subhanaka, praise to be you, glorified to be you, faqina adhaban nar, save us from the fire of hellfire, hell. So these are the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the awliya of Allah, that they are doing a zikr for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they're standing, when they're sitting, when they are laying down. They're doing zikr and they do a tafakkur, they do a lot of reflection. There's a saying, Man arafa nafsa arafa rabba. This is saying that whoever knows himself knows his Lord. You know yourself. Deep reflection of yourself will make you understand your Lord better in that way. In another narration, we know that it was asked actually what are the awliyas of Allah. So there are many ahadith and many tafsir. They say that the people that we see them and it reminds us of Allah. These are the people, these are the awliya of Allah. If you're sitting with someone and he reminds you or she reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then these are the people of Allah. Is it because of looking at their faces with the nur, or the hikmah of the talking? They remind you, they constantly remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They constantly remind you of your duties. They constantly remind you of that. These are the awliya of Allah. That you see them, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no doubt we're discussing here today the life of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala. And Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, if you look at it, he passed away in 560. So this is 1400. So it's been 900 years. 900 years ago, he passed away. And still today, people remember him, people revere him, and people do dua for him, and people learn from his lessons, learn from the teachings that he's passed down generation to generations. His tariq al-Qadriya, it is that he taught certain ibadas, he taught certain ways of worshipping, and gave some awrad for his murids, and these have been passed down from generation to generation. And you can say one of the biggest tariqah, one of the biggest group of Sufis is Tariq al-Qadiriyah. And this is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah blessed him. Because Allah loves someone, then he makes people love him and not forget him. These are the signs of the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we don't forget them. That they passed away centuries ago, but we still remember them. In the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it says that Prophet ﷺ said, is in Bukhari and narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, إِذَا أَحَبَ اللَّهُ الْأَبْدَ, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves his servant, or he says, نَادَ جِبْرِيلُ, he calls Jibreel and says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَحْبِبْهُ, that Allah loves Fulan, فَأَحِبُّ, so love him. Allah loves someone, so love him. For yuhibbuhu Jibreel, so Jibreel then loves him. For yunadi Jibrilu fi ahli sama, so then Jibreel makes an announcement amongst the people, or amongst the things, that amongst the beings living in the heavens. Inna Allah yuhibbu fulanan fa ahibbuhu, that Allah loves fulan person, so love him. For yuhibbuhu ahlus sama, And so Ahlul Sama people, the beings of Ahlul Sama, they love him. These are the Malaikas. These are the people who have passed away. These are the people that have gone away. So all the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the skies, they love this person. ثُمَّ يُودَ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And then the Qabul, his Qabul is then established in the earth. Qabul here, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala explains, قبول القلوب له بالمحبة, that the people of earth, they will accept him. How would they accept him? He says the acceptance is by their love for him. قبول القلوب له بالمحبة, that their hearts, they will accept him with love. وَالْمَيْلُ إِلَيْهِ, and they will lean towards him and they will be happy with him. So this is the qabul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala, he passed away many centuries ago, and people still remember him. His shuhra, his name, it's been spread around the world, in every corner of the world. People know him, people remember him, and people follow his teachings. So who was Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani? Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, he passed away in 470. Sorry, he was born in 470 Hijri, in area near Tabristan, which is currently Iran. So it was close to Ray. So Ray was the old name of the city called Tehran. So it came from the area called Gilan. So sometimes it's also called Gilan, sometimes it's also named Jil, sometimes also named Kil in Arabic. So there are many various ways to name it. So we say Gilan or Gilan. So he was born there, and he was born to noble parents. His father was Hassani, from his lineage. So he went, his lineage went to Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba bin Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. And his mother was named Fatima, and her Ummul Khair Amatul Jabbar. And she was also a Sayyid, and she was from the progeny of Imam Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. And he passed away in 560 Hijri. Ibn Kathir and Ibn Athir and others, they mention in the books of Tariq that the roads and the area of his house was so much filled that people couldn't bury him during the day. People came from all around Baghdad and other areas to attend his janazah. So they couldn't actually bury him. They had to bury him at night. That much, how much people revered him and followed him during that time. There are great lessons from his life. There are countless miracles that we hear and read in the books, and it is not all made up. There are, for example, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that we have not received many news of karamats as much as we have received from Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. So there are noted down in the books of the karama, and he had great miracles. But we really want to understand his life, his teaching, and what we can learn from his life, how we can follow him, and how truly, if you want to become his murid, what a true murid would be. How would we look up to his sheikh? So he, in a very young age of 18, when he says that once he was out, and one of the animal, he spoke to him, and he was a kid, and he said that you're not made for this, i.e. playing or just wasting time. So he said he knew that he had a mission. He knew that he was supposed to learn and then teach knowledge. And then he then spoke to his blessed mother, and her mother then allowed him to leave, but then she divided the money, owed the money between him and his brother. So they were total 80 dinar, and then they say that she gave him 40 dinar. So he left his home for what? He left his home to seek knowledge. Fundamental point and why he left was to seek knowledge. He wanted to go into the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to learn. At that time, the Baghdad was the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. And it was a center of excellence, everything there, all the doctors, the scientists, and everything. If you look at Baghdad, was really the pinnacle of Islamic civilization. So he left his house to go Baghdad to learn. And he was very young, 18 years old, and he hadn't been to Baghdad before. So his mother, the people used to travel in the caravans those days. So her mother, she basically sewed the money under his armpit, so that he doesn't lose it. So she did that, and on the way they mentioned this story, and it's mentioned many times, that, and I wouldn't go into detail, but you guys, notice that on the way there was a thief. There were thieves that attacked the caravan, and they took away all the wealth or whatever people had. But when they came to him and asked him, he said, "Do you have anything?" He said, "Yes, I do have, but I have some money that's under my armpit that's been sewn by my mother." And they were laughed at him. They came twice, and then he said the same. Then they took him to their leader, and then leader asked him, like, "Why are you playing around with us? Like, why are you lying?" He said, "No, I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth, that this is where the money is." They asked him to open it up. They opened his shirt, and they found money there, 40 dinar. And they said, "SubhanAllah, you could have just lied. I mean, you could have just carried on. You didn't have to tell us, because it was hidden from us." He said, "Because I made a promise to my mother that I would not lie. So I do not want to break my promise." SubhanAllah, this is how much he learned from his mother and followed teachings, that he did not want to break the promise of his mother, and he gave the money. This really shocked and surprised the thieves. They said, like, you cannot break a promise with your mother, and you cannot be disobedient to him. And what about us? We are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. They say that all of the thieves in the group, they all repented on his hand. And this was the first, you could say, miracle on his journey. So they say that he went through a lot of struggles in his time in Baghdad, because 40 dinar is nothing. I mean, it's like Baghdad is like capital. It's like London, going and living in London, and going to National Institute and paying the fees. You see that it's very expensive. So they say that when he went there, of course he ran out of money fairly quickly. And he mentions this, there's so many incidents that he lived many days without any food for many days. He was hungry and used to go out in the outskirts of Baghdad to find anything, leaves or anything to eat. And he happened not one occasion, it happened many occasions. So the wilaya doesn't come easy. You have to struggle for it. You have to strive for it. You have to sacrifice for it. And when you are on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be tested. So he went through lots of tests, but nothing deterred him from his path and from seeking knowledge. He already had learned the Quran, but he learned the fiqh, he learned usul, he learned hadith, and he became teacher. And if you look at his life is learning and teaching. He had to do three wa'az, do 3 speeches in a week to the people. And people used to come from far and wide to listen to his wa'az speeches. They had a profound effect on people. And it's with his knowledge and action. Because if you have knowledge and you present to people, that has an effect on people. But if you have knowledge and you're also acting upon it, then it will have a greater effect on people. I remember a story from I believe Imam Hassan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, that he was doing Friday prayers, leading Friday prayers, and some people come to him and said, why don't you encourage people to free slaves? In your khutbah, people listen to you and then they follow you. And he said, okay, I will do it. They say that a time passed away and then he didn't do the khutbah on slaves. And after a while, they say he did a speech on, freeing slave and the benefits of it and the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they said that after Jummah, a lot of people just freed their slaves, a lot of them. And those people who had initially come to him, they said, look, Sheikh, why did you delay it for so long? He said, because I had slave myself. How could I encourage other people if I did not, free my slaves? He said, first I had to free it myself. I acted upon the advice. And then that has a greater effect on people. So you can also try. If you do something and you tell people, they will follow you. And that ta'seer, that effect on people is greater. So that's why the ta'seer of Imam, the Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani was greater. And until today, people follow him because he was a man of action with knowledge, not just knowledge. So we must follow him in his teaching, follow him what he taught us, and weigh the life and live the life the way he lived, seeking knowledge, being truthful, and spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll mention some of the sayings of previous ulama, just to mention. They said about him. So what is the maqam of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah from our ulama, from our past predecessors and greatest personalities. So Imam Az-Zahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says in Siyar Alam al-Nubala that Al-Sheikh Abdul Qadir, he says Al-Sheikh Abdul Qadir, Al-Sheikh Al-Imam, he's a Sheikh and he is an Imam. Al-Alim, he is an Alim. Al-Zahid, he's a Zahid. Al-Arif, he's an Arif, knower. So Arif is a maqam of someone, which is Arif Billah, that he has a greater understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Qudwa means he's a role model. Al-Shaykhul Islam, he's a Shaykh of Islam. Muhayyuddin, that's the laqab. That's the explanation Imam Zahabi giving, and the titles Imam Zahabi giving to Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani. Abu Muhammad Abdul Qadir bin Abi Salih. So this is the Sheikh, that's how he announced him. Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions about him, and he mentions a beautiful thing at the end. He says that Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, he was upholding the laws of Sharia, and he called people towards it and abstained people and deterred them from following the haram or following what is against the Sharia. And he says that he encouraged people and called them towards ibadah, and mujahada means to struggle in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then at the end he mentions a beautiful thing. He says, وَمَنْ كَانَ هَذَا سَبِيلُهُ كَانَ أَكْمَلُ مِنْ غَيْرِهِ لِأَنَّهَا صِفَةُ الصَّاحِبِ الشَّرِيَّةِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. He says, and for this reason he had one of the most perfect personality. He said because this personality was based on the attributes and the sifat and the ways of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That his way was the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He followed the ways of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was, Ibn Taymiyyah, he says in his book, وَأَمَّا أَئِمَّةُ الصُّوفِيَّةِ وَمَشَايِخُ الْمَشْهُورُونَ مِنَ الْقُدَمَاءِ, and about the Aimma, the greats of As-Sufiyya and their shuyukh, مثل Junayd ibn Muhammadin, Muslim Junayd al-Baghdadi, and the people who followed him, ومثل Sheikh Abdul Qadir wa amthalihi, and like the Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani and the likes of him, فَهَؤُلَاءِ مِنْ أَعْظَمِ النَّاسِ لُزُومًا لِلْأَمْرِ وَالنَّهِي. Subhanallah. So he says that these were people are one of the greatest people who obligated to call people towards good and prevent them from bad. This is Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al Jilani. This is the man, and we need to follow his teaching. He has a lot of sayings, a lot of books that he has written. We know a couple of books. Ghuniyatul Talibin it's been mentioned that he has written. A lot of ulama has also said that this book has been written by them, and you can read a lot of books about his sayings and his life, and we should be teaching our kids about the role models of our and the predecessors, because the kids, and this is the age of internet, this is the age of, you can say, drama. So visualization, we are able to visualize, we are able to follow a story, we're able to understand it, and this is the cultural thing here that we have to understand, that we have to adopt to it. So we have to tell our kids the stories about these great personalities, that how we can relate to these stories, how we can relate to them, how we can learn from them, and how we can become better person and better people by following them. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Fatiha, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us towards the Sirat al-Mustaqim, on the straight path. Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim. Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim. The path of those people who you bestowed your bounties on them. So this is the way that we have to ask. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us towards the path of people who you bestowed bounty. And Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah ta'ala is one of those people. So we have to follow his path, we have to understand his teaching, and we have to get our kids, our youngsters, to know about these personalities, about the personality of likes of Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, so we can get inspiration from his stories, we can get inspiration from his teachings, and just inspiration from overall his personalities and how he became now one of the greatest wali of, you can say, previous 1,000 years or more in the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by following what? For following the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leaving everything in his nafs, leaving the dunya away, just following the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learning and teaching all his life. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to learn about these personalities more, give us the tawfiq to really read the seerah, give us the tawfiq to learn lessons from it and pass it on to others. Ameen. Bijahin Nabil Amin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.